Hello everyone and welcome to this time lapse. Got this lovely Dutch inspired floral with the window, got lovely light streaming in here, and we've got a lot of wildflowers in this like lovely ceramic vase. So I'm starting off on pastel matte paper on the dark grey. Actually no, this is the anthracite color, sorry. Anthracite. So it's the darkest color that pastel matte do. And the size is 35.5 centimeters by 34 centimeters. So not massive, a little bit bigger than what I usually work. I wanted to be able to get in all those details without going massive. I didn't want to go too big because the cost of framing is considerable, and then also storing is a little bit more painful for the largest pastel sizes because you have to store properly, and this also isn't on board. I guess you could adhere this pastel matte paper to some mount board so it's a bit more sturdy, so it's not as flexible, and then store with glassine paper. And also I like to store my pastel works facing up. I don't like storing them kind of like horizontally. What? Vertically. Anyway, enough about storing pastel. I do want to get this framed anyway. But moving on to what I'm actually doing, you can see my sketch is a very rough sketch. I tend now to put in those details and kind of pastel the details as I go along. I have main lines which I follow, so the line for the vase, which you'll see me change and I really struggle with, but lines for the main flowers. You've got the 2 roses and the 3 gerberas and the 2 irises. Quite a few little lines to suggest details in those big main shapes. But I tend to just, draw as I go along, if you like. So I started with the background, putting in some grays and some browns and some turquoise, and then starting to put on these wildflowers on top of that, using a mixture of Giraud's, Unison, Sennelier, and Art Spectrum Extra Soft. Also see me pick up, as you can see here, a few pastel pencils. I use a mixture of brands, but mainly Caran d'Ache, I would say, the few Carbothellos, and a tiny bit of Faber-Castell. Anyway, so you can see I've got my reference photograph right next to me. That's just so I can see exactly what needs to be placed where. I was struggling a little bit with these gerberas. I mean, I do struggle with flowers. I find them very, very tricky, and I need a lot of practice when it comes to floral art. Hence why I decided to go all out and do this massive bouquet. Anyway, so sometimes I'll take a photograph. If I'm struggling, I'll take a photograph of my painting and then also convert that to black and white, and then convert the original image, the reference photograph, to black and white, just so I can see shapes better and see what's going wrong and make any corrections. So funny, when I do flowers, I have to really tell my brain, work dark to light, like I do with everything else. I work dark to light, making sure I get my darks dark enough, my midtones and my lights, looking at the shape, looking at my edges, soft edges, hard edges. But sometimes all of that just flies out the window. I'm trying so hard to make these gerberas work that I'm hardly looking at the reference photo. I just go into a zone where my hand just goes, chip, 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 chip. And that's really not good for me. When I feel like I'm making a mistake, I stop looking at the reference photograph to try and fix the mistakes. Really silly. I don't know why that happens, but it only happens when it comes to doing florals. I don't know what it is. It's the strangest thing. Anyway, we got through this 9.5 hours it took me to do this piece. Now, when it comes to doing all the fillers, the little foliage and the flowers in between and the fillers, that's not a problem. Just with simple strokes, you can make effective floral-like marks, which then read as flowers. But when it comes to the detailed flowers, these gerberas and the roses, the hyacinths, did I decide they were hyacinths? No, I decided they were lilacs. I couldn't decide what they were. Sorry, the lilacs. Those were also quite easy. But the gerberas and the roses, strangely also these irises, they came together quite nicely. But for the irises, I slowed right down. Obviously, you can't see that here because it's on speed mode. But I struggled so much with those gerbers. After doing the gerbers, I slowed down with these irises and I really studied that reference photograph, and they worked out much better than the gerbers. Also, by this time, I'd put so much pastel on that paper. I wasn't where I'd done the gerbers. It was a bit tricky to go in and make them look a little bit better. You know, they're looking quite messy. You'll see I go back in and I try and tidy up a little bit more. So they look okay now. I'm kind of happy with everything. Just it is just really important to look at that reference photograph. And like I said, I don't know why I stray from it when I'm struggling with something. So back to the irises. You can see I'm using a lot of color. You've got purples in there, I've got pinks in there, I've got blue violets in there. And I am using white, but I'm reserving the white for the literally the lightest parts where that light is literally shining right onto the iris. But I've built up layers using grays, like I said, grays and purples, to get that depth. Because if I just used very pale values, very light values, it would just read a little bit flat. You've got to get your darks in there with white objects and white flowers and everything. You can't just go in with white, it will just fall completely flat. So I did decide to change the reference photograph quite a bit. I took away all the daisies and I simplified the peaches. We've just got one peach and then one cut peach there. I just felt like with all the flowers, it was just a bit of an overkill. It was just a bit too much. So that's why I decided to take out some of those peaches. So this piece was definitely a challenge. I enjoy a challenge now and again. Like at the moment, I've got simple work on my easel, 2 plums and a fennel. Something simple, something I'm comfortable with. But that's because so much energy went into trying to figure this one out. So this vase, it gave me so much trouble. It was so skew and wonky. It's like the whole vase was sliding down to the right. So I tried so many different techniques. I moved the paper upside down, inside out, not inside out, you know what, up, down, side, to try and get the shape right. I also cut out like a stencil, the reference photograph, to try and correct the shape. But obviously I think the shape was wrong in the actual reference photograph. So I just had to go and correct it. And because I'd finished every other aspect of the painting almost, to have to work on the vase was just so horrible because I was happy with everything else, but the vase wasn't working. But I did get there in the end, even though it was a massive struggle. It is well worth it because, of course, I've learned things doing this. But if you've enjoyed this, then please do like and subscribe, and I shall see you in my next one. Thanks for watching, and bye for now.